So we've developed this commercial paper program to provide the department with $300 million between now and the fall in the form of this commercial paper program. They already have a $125 million commercial paper program with Wells Fargo that's been in existence for a number of years. That letter of credit is set to expire on July 30th. So we've renewed the $125 million commercial paper program with Wells Fargo to provide them with an existing $125 million. And we've expanded the program with an additional bank letter of credit of $175 million from a new bank, TD Bank, providing them with a total of $300 million of commercial paper. We expect that $300 million of commercial paper will give them enough short-term capital to get us through the summer until the feasibility study is completed in the late summer and early fall, for us to come back before you with a long-term plan of finance in the September timeframe to issue long-term debt and complete their long-term plan of finance. So this is basically interim financing to get us through the summer, keep their capital program going, and we'll come back to you at the end of the summer, early fall, with a long-term plan of finance.
So what are the factors that you look at to determine the best financing method?
It's really a myriad number of factors that are being looked at. So, sort of, what are their long-term capital needs? What are the interest rates out there in the marketplace? How are they spending their money on an ongoing basis? Number of simultaneous equations that are going on, and they've got a capital planning team, a program management team that's, is Mr. Williams here? Mr. Williams is here. He's got a team that is looking at all of these factors in a very complex plan that's determining what are their long-term capital needs as part of that planning process. Mr. Williams, if you would.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Williams, Deputy Commissioner, Office of Watershed. We employ a project PMST team that we go through our capital requirements monthly, prioritize, update based on changes in expenses, and we've seen significant amount of uptick in contractor prices. This provides us a capacity to deal with changes based on inflation and short-term capital needs.
And so you anticipate that this is going to carry you through about when?
To the fall, without us having to issue any long-term bond notes.
Okay, so by then, would I be right in assuming that we will not know the results of our, interest in extending the consent decree deadline?
Please ask that again.
I'm under the impression that the city is sort of informally engaging the feds in a conversation about whether or not we might be able to extend consent decree deadlines, which would, change a lot of the scheduling and financing.
That's correct, and it's not specifically applicable to the amount that we have to pay. It's the ability to execute the availability contractors more than it is capital requirements.
And Byron Amos has joined us. Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is the $300 million this paper's covering? What do you see it? I know there's not necessarily everyday projects, but stormwater projects, any of the required projects under the consent decree. I know there are two major projects left.
All of the above.
Of course, upgrades to our water treatment plants, specifically Orem Clayton.
Yes, all of the above.
Thank you.
There's a motion to approve on substitute, which has been made and properly seconded. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
If this can be the vote to bring the substitute forward. Thank you. The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you.
Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Ayes have it. Item's been approved on substitute. Takes us to number 8, 24-0-1223, an ordinance by Mr. Dozier authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $4,500 to the National Center for Civil and Human Rights pursuant to the code section of the charter listed here and for other purposes. Motion to approve by Overstreet, which I will second. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, item's approved. Number 9 is 24-0-1226. It's an ordinance by Ms. Boone to amend the Atlanta City Code, Part 2, sections and chapters which are indicated to create a... For number 9,
Yes, caption changes.
please read the proposed caption.
I can read it. Okay. 24-0-1226, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea Boone and substituted by Finance Executive Committee to amend Chapter 114, Article 4, Division 1 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to create a new section 11491 to be titled Workers' Compensation Training to require that all elected officials and all part-time and full-time employees of the City of Atlanta undergo workers' compensation training on an annual basis, to require that the Department of Human Resources shall be responsible for maintaining and implementing the required workers' compensation training and for other purposes.
Second.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, substitutes before us. What's the nature of the substitute? It says update clauses and exhibits, but I'd like to hear a little bit more.
If I'm not good afternoon, Jerry Deloge, Chief Risk Officer from the Department of Finance. If I'm not mistaken, was to add the word employee that had been left out of the caption.
Okay, well, tell us about the paper then.
And I'm going to introduce you to L'Oreal Driscoll, who's a risk manager in the Office of Enterprise Risk Management, and she's going to speak to the paper.
Okay.
Greetings, Chairman Shook and committee members.
Morning.
As Chief Deloach stated, my name is L'Oreal Driscoll. The legislation before you this afternoon provides for the requirements of workers' compensation training for all elected, full, and part-time employees. This is a collaborative effort between the Office of Enterprise Risk Management and Human Resource. The actual training covers parts of the Georgia Code for Workers' Compensation and rules and regulations for the State Board of Workers' Compensation. The main objectives are to provide employees with knowledge of the workers' compensation laws and to provide proof that we have provided that information to employees.
Good afternoon. So what was the impetus for, I'm assuming we don't have this currently and we're adding it. What was the driver in terms of why we're doing this now? What instigated the addition?
Good afternoon. What we're currently doing now, we participate with HR in the orientation program, but by having this required training, it provides further proof and documentation when we go to court, particularly when it comes to our panel of physicians. Sometimes employees will say, I didn't know the panel existed, and this creates that solid foundation, solid proof that we provided it because the training can be tracked and can be documented.
But there wasn't, was this a new requirement or it just, we're doing it as a proactive measure?
We're doing it as a proactive measurement.
Okay, and then.
Because it has come to our attention that we need to document the information that we provide to our employees as it relates to workers' compensation.
Okay, does this result in any sort of like, aside from closing some exposure or liability that we have, does that result in any sort of like lower and savings in, claim rates, or is it just because we want to lower that exposure?
Lower the exposure because we can prove that we at least provide them with a panel of physicians.
What's the format of the training?
We're gearing toward e-learning, but we'll also have provision for those employees who don't have access to computers who are not computer savvy, we'll do an in-person training for them as well.
Go ahead, Ms. Overstreet.
I was looking for the financial portion of the training.
There's no, there will be minimal cost to create the training in terms of doing the e-learning, but there's no cost other than that associated with the training. That's what your question is.
Okay.
It occurs to me that there's an awful lot of training that city employees go through, and I know we're no exceptions to that. I mean, I'll put it this way. I hope that the training amounts to something other than an hour being spent away from doing what your core job is, and that really is going to help each individual employee as they kind of navigate their careers here. But I mean, I'm getting nervous about the number of hours, you know, in any given year that we're pulling people away in order to check a box. And I'm not sure that we're getting a 100% return on our investment on that. But yeah, that's fine. We have a motion and a second, right? All right, let's open that vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, items approved as substituted. 24-012-19 is an ordinance by Shook to ratify, reaffirm, supplement and amend that certain commercial paper ordinance adopted January 17th of 06.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
1228.
Sorry. That would be 24-012-28, an ordinance by Mr. Amos supplementing and the restated and amended master bond ordinance of the city, previously adopted on March 20th of 2000, is previously amended and supplemented, providing for the issuance by the city of its airport general revenue bonds in a combined aggregate principal amount not to exceed $600 million in multiple series designated herein as Series 2024 A/B bonds, and any additional subseries designation as herein permitted, providing funds for the purpose of, among other things, financing and refinancing in whole or in part the cost of planning, engineering, design, acquisition, equipping, and construction of certain improvements to the airport, providing for a reasonably required debt service reserve, providing for the payment of cost of issuance, including bond insurance, if any, providing for the forms and authorizing the execution of said Series 2024 A and B bonds, providing for the rights of holders of said Series 2024 A and B bonds, authorizing and approving the preparation, use, and distribution of a preliminary official statement and a final statement in connection with the offer and sale of the Series 2024 A and B bonds, granting the chief officer, the city finance officer, or airport general manager the authority to deem final the preliminary official statement for purposes of Securities and Exchange Commission rule listed here, granting the chief officer, the city finance officer, or airport manager the authority to approve and execute a final official statement, authorizing the execution of a continuing disclosure agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and certain other agreements in connection with said Series 2024 A and B bonds, and providing for incidental action, authorizing the negotiation and purchase of municipal bond insurance, and the selection of a bond insurer with respect to all or a portion of said Series 2024 A and B bonds, if determined to be in the best interest of the city, designating a paying agent and bond registrar, providing for severability, authorizing certain officials and employees to take all actions required in connection with the issuance of said bonds, providing certain other details with respect thereto, providing an effective date, and for other related purposes. Mr. Knight.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we're switching to the airport now. This is part of our ongoing capital improvement program at Hartsfield-Jackson. This August 7th, we're planning to issue not to exceed 600 million. We're actually currently planning on that being around 400 million general airport revenue bonds. For the ongoing capital expenditures at the airport, in recent briefings, you've heard me say that that is largely for the South Side parking deck capital project. The second largest ongoing capital project is that Concourse D widening project out there, but also various and sundry other capital projects at the airport. We're sizing it right now at about $400 million. Can go up and down. That's why we have a not to exceed of about 600 million. It's interesting. We've got other airports around the country expected to come in that same August timeframe. We've got a lot of airports coming to market, but because it's Hartsfield-Jackson, we know we're going to sell. We know we're going to sell Atlanta bonds well this year. So we're asking for your preliminary approval of not to exceed 600 million bonds for Hartsfield-Jackson today.
Second. Let's hold that vote. Let's open that vote. Open the vote, sorry.
The vote is open.
Let's conduct the vote.
The vote is closed.
All right, the substitutes before us, questions or comments?
Move to approve on substitute.
I have a question. What's the pathway procedurally forward? Are we holding this for a special call?
Yeah, so we'll. Yeah, we'll go to the bond market on Tuesday, August 6th. We'll ask for a special call meeting on Wednesday, August 7th. And we'll schedule to close the bonds on August 22nd.
All right, I'll second that. Questions or comments?
Subject to approval by the council president for the special call meeting. So that's our tentative schedule, but we have to go through the process of getting his approval as well as getting it advertised.
All right. Any questions or comments? Is the motion made and properly seconded to approve on substitute? Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the ayes have it. 24-0-1234 is an ordinance by Shook to amend the chapter indicated here of the class plan of the Code of Ordinances so as to provide for certain position abolishments, creations, reclasses, class creations, and above entry authorizations, employee and position transfers, position funding allocation changes, and other personnel actions in line with the FY 2025 budget and for other purposes. This is our shell paper representing the personnel paper, which we'll take up later. So motions to hold.
Second.
Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, to resolutions, 24R3547, resolution by Shook authorizing the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts incurred due to burst water service lines in the amount of blank and for other purposes. Let's take the next two together. The motion will be to hold both. 24R3548 is a resolution by Shook authorizing the CFO to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in the amount of blank. All funds to be charged when paid from, etc. Motions to hold both. Second by Juan. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, both items are held until needed. 24R3552 is a resolution by Mr. Bond authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the third amendment to the agreement which is listed here. Citywide security guard services with dynamic and safeguard security on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness to add funding for the Department of Watershed Management, Municipal Court, Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness, and the Department of Parks and Rec in an amount not to exceed $1,210,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. The official who was going to present this suddenly was called away because of a family emergency. Oh, come on up.
Yes. Yeah, I still had an emergency, but I said I could stay to handle this. So, good afternoon, Chairman Shook and council members. My name is Andre Kearns. I'm with the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness, representing the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. Of course, this purpose of this legislation is to amend the citywide security guard services for funding for Watershed Municipal Court, Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness, as well as the Department of Parks and Recs. The point of this is that the security guard services were increased at the various City of Atlanta sites to help prevent vandalism and other issues on and around the properties. And also this would cover the funding for the remainder of FY24 and a few months into FY25.
Mr. Warren.
Thank you. And I'll be quick. So how has the performance of the contract been to date with regard to the existing user departments?
As far as the security guard services, they've been good. I mean, we've had situations where they needed to increase the number of guards to be able to help coverage. And that's about it. But overall, they've been good.
Do we know what their recruitment and kind of background check is on the guards that they recruit? I've gotten kind of concerns raised by some stakeholders about just the process and, folks with, some histories that have been hired and then deployed through this contract.
Okay. Well, we'll look into that situation, but I haven't heard any issues with that. But you mentioned about the background check. They follow through the state's background process, which is, I forgot the minimum number of hours that are required for the guards, but they go through that particular process and then they do a GCIC background check on those individuals that are coming under the contract security guard services.
Do we ever look at those just as the client of the contractor?
Well, we do review those. We ask for a report once a year so we can look at those, look at the history for those guards that are coming through these services.
Okay. If you will, though, if that is something y'all could provide to us in terms of what that last report looked like, or if you just can get a chance to review it and just report back, that would be sufficient as well. So thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments? Mr. Amos.
Yes, sir. Thought I'd jump in here as an owner of a security company. It's 16 and 24. 16 if it's unarmed, 24 if it's armed. 8 classroom, 6, 8, and then 8. But they're also supposed to have individual blue cards from the state saying that company has certified each one of their guards. A lot of times what happens, companies get contracts and hire people, don't necessarily have them trained. So that's one of the key things we probably do need to look at to make sure each one that are actually on property have the blue card, meaning they're trained by and certified by the state.
That was good to know. Cool. Yeah.
All right, do we have?
I'll move to approve.
All right. Motion to approve by Juan, second by Hillis. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
Vote is closed.
Thank you for staying around. I assume you need to be somewhere else.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. 24R3553, resolution by Finance Exec, amending the resolution indicated here, adopted by the city on the date listed and approved as per charter section on the date listed to correct the initial term of the agreement and for other purposes. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Carr, Deputy CFO. We wanted to come before you to make a correction to legislation that was adopted in 20. This is legislation for Empower. We use Empower for defined contributions, our 401A and 457B. So initially, it referenced a term of 3 years, and really it should have been 5 years. So we wanted to be proactive and make that correction to the legislation. Everything is okay with the contract. It's just the legislation needed to be corrected.
Questions, comments?
I'm obviously supportive. I'm just curious as to how y'all caught, or how this came out. Like, how'd you find out about it?
So as we're going through the process, we look at all of our contracts to make sure that we're on point for making sure renewing the contracts. And so as we go through the audit, we know there are certain things that our auditors will be looking at, as well as the, here in our office in the Department of Finance.
Move approval.
Second. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Have it. 24R3554 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the second renewal option for the FC indicated. This is banking services with Wells Fargo Bank on behalf of the Department of Finance for a term of 1 year, effective June 25th of this year through June 24th of next, and for other purposes. Mr. Knight.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Courtney Knight, City Treasurer. This is the final renewal of the banking services contract that the city has with Wells Fargo Bank. The contract was initiated back in 2018 for 5 years with 2 one-year renewals. Again, this is the final renewal under this contract. Wells Fargo has performed satisfactorily throughout the term of the contract. Treasury has begun working with our partners in DOP on the process and the timing for working through a solicitation process for a new banking services contract.
I'll second that. Questions, comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
You guys have it. 24R3555 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund $5,750 to Regions Business Capital for the purpose of refunding the overpayment of 2021, 22, and 23 occupation tax. All funds should be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. Motion to approve, and that's been seconded by Mr. Winston. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. 24R3556, resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor as designee to exercise the second renewal option for the CP indicated Workiva Cloud Services with Vertosoft LLC, utilizing a GSA contact number of which is listed on behalf of the Department of Finance for a term of 1 year effective June 19th of this through June 18th of next, in an amount not to exceed $155,840.75. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Carr, Deputy CFO. This is a resolution with Vertosoft. They're the third-party provider for Workiva. This is a software that we use to prepare our financial statements. And so what we're asking is to renew the last extension that we have. This is a software that we use for watershed, aviation, and the general fund to make sure we prepare our annual comprehensive financial statements.
I will second that. Nothing else, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, we have a substitute for 24R3557. I'll read the proposed substitute's caption. Say substitute resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute special procurement agreement, number of which is indicated, Microsoft Unified Support Services with Microsoft Corp. On behalf of Department of Information Management, pursuant to the code section indicated here, effective June 8th of this year through June 7th of 2027 for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $3,199,308.80. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. I'll make a motion to bring forward the substitute. Second by Juan. Let's open that procedural vote.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, the substitutes before us, I will make a motion to amend in the iPro report. Second by Winston. So let's move on the amendment.
Yes.
But the substitute accomplish that? All right, questions or comments about what we're doing? Is it?
Move approval on substitute.
Yeah, I'll second that. Anything else? Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
All right, the ayes have it. Items approved on substitute. 24R3558 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a sole source agreement, number of which is indicated. This is for natural gas support services with the Georgia Municipal Association pursuant to the listed code section of the Atlanta City Code, provide natural gas support services with for a term of 7 years with 2 one-year renewal options at a price not to exceed 0.8 of 1 cent per therm for gas delivered under the Atlanta Gas Lights rate and 0.3 of 1 cent per therm for gas delivered under the interruptible rate on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management. All funds to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon, Council Chair and other members of the Council. Chris Davis, Commissioner of Department of Enterprise Assets Management. Purpose of this legislation is to enter into another agreement with GMA for the gas services that they provide for the city of Atlanta.
Could you describe the pricing mechanism here?
So basically, it's what they do is they actually go out and solicit different gas services, be able to get the best gas price for the city, and in return, what they actually do is charge us 1/8 of 1 cent for the services that they provide.
And what is an interruptible rate?
So that's a different rate that actually for watershed and the different services package that they are on.
Questions or comments? I'll move approval. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
We have no duels, is that correct?
Correct.
That takes us to held papers. We have a number of papers that are awaiting the iPro attachments, the first of which on page 15, it is item 38. It is 24R3445, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor's designee to execute a co-op, which is listed here, Amazon Web Services with Carasoft Technology Information on behalf of the departments of AIM, Watershed, Aviation, and APD, utilizing a state of Utah master contract, number of which is indicated, for a term of 1 year with 3 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $1,756,723.66. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera. I will make a motion to amend in the iPro report. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, it's been amended. Mr. Procurement Chief, I do have just a kind of a general question. I'm under the impression that you prefer kind of to avoid co-ops if there are better methodologies out there. So could you just please kind of update your philosophy about when that is or isn't the best pathway forward?
Jaideep Majumdar, Chief Procurement Officer for City of Atlanta. You're absolutely right. We try to look at different options when it comes to sourcing of products, goods, or services. We prefer to have our own contract with our own terms and conditions and the rates that we can negotiate. But sometimes what we do is we also take a look at what contracts are there outside of the city with other municipalities to see if the pricing is better in those kind of situation. We want to bring the best value to the city, and so our first preference is to go with contracts that we can do it ourselves.
Okay. I will second that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, thank you. Motion's adopted as amended. 24R3448 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor as designee to enter into a special procurement agreement, number of which is indicated. First in turnout timers with WestNet Inc. on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $1,858,000. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. I will make a motion to amend in the iPro report.
Second.
Second by Juan. Let's open that procedural vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon again, members of the council. Chris Davis, Commissioner, Department of Enterprise Assets Management. Purpose of this legislation is to enter into an agreement with WestNet, which provides the first alerting monitoring system for the fire department. This system is in all of the fire department stations, and this is for the new stations moving forward. So we're trying to be proactive in this to be able to establish what these contracts is going to be moving forward so that we can have these things in place as we continue to design and prepare for the building of the stations.
So the iPro report, there was an observation that talked about original RFP cost of solicitation was different, and then the response has you adding in some other stations that just described. No?
No, so the way that what they did is took the original legislation package and it applied the same pricing throughout the other stations. And so what I explained to them is that what we are seeing that each year there's an escalation in costs.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that the RFP went out with the entire package.
Correct.
It wasn't changed midstream.
Correct.
Perfect, thank you. I'll move approval as amended.
Second. Anything else? All right, let's vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Items adopted as amended. Next is item 40, 24R 3454, resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute a special procurement, the agreement, the number of which is listed, with Group AA4 Fiber Traffic Signal and Communication Projects with Lumen 8 Transportation Technologies on behalf of the Department of Transportation pursuant to the listed code section for cabinet upgrades at several signalized intersections and single-mode fiber installations with single-mode fiber drops to the signalized intersections along Monroe Drive and Boulevard from 10th Street to Memorial Drive and along 10th Street from Monroe to Piedmont Avenue for a term of 1 year with one-year renewal option in amount not to exceed $1,178,823. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. I will make a motion to amend by adding the iPro report. Second. Second by Juan. Let's open that procedural vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right.
Move to approve as amended.
I'll second that. Questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open that.
Vote is open. Vote is
Items
closed.
approved as amended. 24R3455, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute sole source agreement, a number of which is indicated. This is incinerator maintenance, repair, and replacement with Industrial Furnace Company, Inc., pursuant to the code section listed here of the city code on behalf of Watershed for an initial term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in amount not to exceed $4,800,000. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. I will make a motion to adopt to amend by adding in the iPro report. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman Shook, council members. My name is Quincy Fletcher, Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Water Treatment and Reclamation in the Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of this legislation is to request authorization to execute sole source agreement SSP IFDWM 2402-1240214, incinerator maintenance, repair, and replacement. Services include operating, providing upgrades, repairs, and maintenance for the incinerators at the R.M. Clayton Water Reclamation Center. The R.M. Clayton Water Reclamation Center has 2 sewer sludge incinerators, which must comply with state and federal regulations. The incinerator process removes moisture from the sludge, destroying both organic matter, pathogenic organisms that exist within. This results in a non-odorous product called ash being transported to the landfill. IFCO has provided work to the city in the past in accordance with Section 2119 of the Atlanta City Code. The city procurement officer determined that Industrial Furnace Incorporated is the only source for services and recommend entering into the sole source agreement. For 3 years is the base with 2 one-year renewals. This request is critical as the city is required to meet the requirements of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Under these permits, the city is required to maintain critical systems to meet discharge limits to protect public health and the Chattahoochee River water quality. This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Seconded by Hillis. Motion by Juan. Oh, I'm sorry. We have, Mr. Hillis, did you have comments?
Yes, please.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you, DC Fletcher. So what is, this is a new contract. These are currently in operation today, or are there issues that are keeping it from operating?
So they're currently operating at the R.M. Clayton Water Reclamation Center with no issues.
So what is the nature of the, I guess, any current needed maintenance or upgrades that this contract will cover?
So one item up under the new agreement, we will replace the master control, which is obsolete. The incinerators were installed over 20 years ago, and working in that harsh environment, we need to replace the master controls for both incinerators.
Understood. Thank you.
Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Councilmember Hillis is excited to see this move forward, but one quick question. Why not separate this into 2 separate contracts for the replacement, also with the maintenance? It just seems like they could be separate.
Because IFCO can also complete the maintenance. Today, with the Department of Procurement, we do have 2 separate, we also have a goods and commodities contracts where we can go out and replace and buy parts for the incinerators, but IFCO is doing the day-to-day operation of both incinerators, and they can also do maintenance as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Do we have a?
I think I made a motion to approve on as amended.
All right, I'll second that. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items approved as amended. We have, I believe, one more item, and that is an item that was referred to us by CDHS. It is item 45. It is 24-0-1217. It's an ordinance by Winston and Lewis as substituted by CDHS, authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to execute a memorandum of understanding between the city, the Atlanta Braves Foundation, Morehouse College, and the Atlanta Fulton County Recreational Authority for the purpose of accepting donations and transferring funds for the construction of improvements to the city's South Side Park and the development of a baseball complex at the park to honor Henry Hank Aaron, to promote minority youth participation in baseball, authorizing the acceptance by the city of donations of funds and in-kind services from the foundation in an amount not less than $1 million, approximately $800,000 in cash and $200,000 in payment of design fees for the complex, donations of funds from Morehouse in an amount not less than $2 million, donations of funds from the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority in an amount not less than $1 million, and donations from other sources, collectively the donated funds, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city to enter into individual use permits with the Foundation, Morehouse, and AFCRA to permit their use of the future field in the complex for certain periods of time, authorizing the city to provide funding for the complex in an amount not to exceed $3,750,000, authorizing the CFO or his designee to rename and repurpose the Washington Park Tennis Center Trust Fund as the Southside Park Trust Fund, to authorize the acceptance of donations and sponsorship monies and the transfer of funds to AFCRA from the Southside Park Trust Fund, authorizing the city to provide funding for the complex by amending the FY 2024 budget to transfer an amount not to exceed $3,750,000 from the general obligation public improvement bonds, Series 2022A, fund to the Southside Park Trust Fund, waiving the code section indicated here, to authorize the mayor's designee to execute a sponsorship agreements with sponsors to effectuate the additional funding for completion of the complex and for other purposes. And this comes to us, as I said, from CDHS. Commissioner, could you acquaint us with this partnership?
Yeah. Chair Shook, members of the City Council, Justin Cutler, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to some of our colleagues, both in the Department of Law as well as the Department of Procurement and Finance. Oftentimes these resolutions, these ordinances are joint efforts. However, the department representing the resolution or the ordinance is the one that has to speak to this item. So I just want to call out specifically the team at the Department of Law, Finance, and Procurement that help make these complex partnerships possible. So thank you to that team, those teams. This ordinance, what it does is it helps us to reimagine the Southside Sports Complex by adding field turf at all 4 fields, enhancing the fields with a new community building that'll include community meeting space, office space for our athletics team, as well as providing a feature field for the community and for Morehouse College. It will have stadium seating. It'll have locker rooms, both for the community and for Morehouse and their visiting organizations. And it will provide new places and new spaces for our young people to play baseball. In addition to that, we're working with the Braves Foundation, who's raising capital. We're contributing $3.75 million of the Moving Atlanta Forward bond program, and the remainder of the roughly $17 million budget is coming from nonprofits and partners to make this field happen. So we're bringing a little bit, and we're getting a lot for our community, and just excited about the project.
All right, Mr. Wan.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the project. My question is more around the financing, so this may be for CFO Bala. The $3.75 million that's coming from Moving Atlanta Forward bonds, I believe that's what you just said. Is it, where within those bond funds is it coming? Because I thought all those funds were allocated to existing projects, and this
is the existing project.
So it was already contemplated?
It was already contemplated in the original bond.
Very good. That answers my question.
Yeah, great question.
James.
Almost want to make a motion to substitute another paper that goes without Section 8, the repurposing of the Washington Park Tennis Center Trust Fund. Until that is pulled out, this paper will not receive my support.
All right, thank you. We're joined by Ms. Bakhtiari.
Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, do you want to talk about it?
Well, I mean, it's nothing to talk about. I have not had one conversation about repurposing a trust fund that sits squarely in District 3, and it is a surprise to pull it from one side of town to another side of town with no conversation, no explanation especially when we just opened the tennis center. It is thriving. The money could be used there, especially when I'm looking forward to getting hopefully a new recreation center in the district. There's other places that can be used, but the biggest thing, and I'm disappointed in, is no conversation before this paper was dropped.
Understood. I would encourage administration officials to get with Mr. Amos ASAP.
Sure. I just want to clarify something that trust fund has $0 in it right now. We're happy to discuss and maybe find an alternative, but we can recreate the trust fund, but there's no money in it.
I was gonna say, we create trust funds left and right every day, up and down. That probably seems like it'd be a pretty easy adjustment to make to maintain that one and create a new one for this, unless there's another hoop we got to jump through.
Well, no, one of the things that we're actually looking to do, and the CFO maybe can speak to this, is one of the things that we've gotten feedback on is a number of trust funds, to your point, Councilmember Juan, that we have within the city of Atlanta. These are revolving cash accounts, money in, money out, right? Not subject to a lot of scrutiny in that sense. So I think one of the efforts that we're trying to do is consolidate these accounts. So all of the tennis trust funds have been consolidated into a tennis trust fund. So Chastain, Bitsy Grant, Sharon Lester, Washington Park, McGee will all be consolidated into a single trust fund, which will receive the money from Agape Tennis Center into that account, which will then use to make improvements to all tennis centers based on the needs of the specific tennis centers. So instead of manage it on an individual basis, we'll manage it on a collective basis. Similarly, we have community center trust fund account. Those will be managed collectively because the money is generated collectively and will be spent collectively on the needs of each of the sites. Because there are some sites that don't generate trust fund revenue, and so we need to make sure that we're balancing that out.
Just a quick comment. That's why it's so important. A text, tweet, phone call, smoke signal. We would have been out here 5 minutes ago.
Understood.
Mr. Winston has made a motion to approve, second by Ms. Overstreet. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
All right, the ayes have it. Ms. Kempson Wright, do we have any of the business today?
Sir.
Are there any announcements or comments my colleagues would like to make at this time? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.